Hello, Watford friends. My name's Daniel Grothe, and I'm the Associate Senior Pastor at New Life Church here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I came with my family 2 years ago to Watford before the world shut down. We were on sabbatical and we ran around and played and were refreshed and spent time with our dear friends Tim and Helen Roberts. And I just want to say what an honor it is to be here today, Tim and Helen. And friends, thank you for having me. Here at the Enhance Conference, my prayer is that you would be refreshed, that you would be able to take a deep breath. And one of the things that we've learned in the last couple years, if we didn't know it already, is that life is just absolutely wild. There are eruptions of disruptions. There are moments that catch us off guard. None of us could have seen this coming in these particular ways, the world being turned upside down. And the great boxer Mike Tyson once said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." And I think all of us have been punched in the mouth a bit. And today, the Enhance Conference is a chance to try to reset and to be with other leaders and other pastors and other friends who understand the role of leading communities of people. And so there's a few things that I want to say to you today about life and what to do when you get punched in the mouth. I remember being a young pastor at New Life Church. When I came here, we were riding high. I moved here almost 17 years ago. And our senior pastor was the president of the National Association of Evangelicals here in the United States of America, which is a 30 million member representative group. And we had headquarters in Washington, D.C. And when Congress or the Senate were debating legislation, they would call us to say, what do Christians think, Christians in America? And so we were kind of intoxicated with our importance at the moment. And Mel Gibson flew here on a private jet to release the Passion of the Christ to thousands of pastors who were here for our conference. And the President of the United States at the time, George W. Bush, Skyped into our pastors' conference. We were kind of a figurehead church here. And months later, we discovered that our senior pastor was caught in a scandal. And we were riding high, and then we crashed into the valley of the shadow of death. We lost our senior pastor. We were heartbroken at the loss of our friend, and we discovered we were $26.5 million in debt at the time, and this is just when the Great Recession is coming on. So 30% of our church leaves, we're in crisis, and then the global economy tanks. We had to fire 44 staff members. We're a larger church here in Colorado Springs, and so we're heartbroken at the loss of our pastor. We're in an economic crisis. We've just had to fire our friends. And then finally, 10 months later, we get a new senior pastor who moves here to Colorado Springs. And trust is starting to get restored and hope is starting to rise. We feel the wind of the Spirit now shifting to our back again and blowing us forward in life and in faith and in hope. And trust is being restored. And then on the 100th day of our new senior pastor's tenure here, we just finished our Sunday morning services, and I was standing down at the end of our children's hallway, and all of a sudden I heard the worst sound you could ever hope to hear anywhere, especially in a church, and it's the sound, bop, 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 bop. A gunman ran on our campus with an assault rifle and 1,000 rounds of ammunition, a couple handguns, and is spraying bullets everywhere. He killed 2 teenage girls in our church parking lot, sisters, Rachel and Stephanie. They were 16 and 18. Then he ran in our church building, in our children's hallway, and is just shooting everywhere. And the security guard runs down toward him, a lady about 5'3" tall, and she has a handgun, shoots him in the leg, and he falls down and then ends up taking his life in our children's hallway. Within the span of 13 months, we lost our senior pastor. We're in a global recession. We're in major debt. We had to fire our friends. And now we've got a double murder-suicide on our campus. Life completely caught us off guard. We were living in the valley of the shadow of death, it felt. And the question that I want to ask today, and I want us to consider together, is what do you do when the bottom falls out? What do you do when life surprises you? What do you do when you get punched in the mouth? What do you do when a global pandemic takes over the world and we're all learning as we go together? I want to put a few things in front of you here today for your consideration in this first session, this kind of devotional time, this time where we're opening our hearts and settling into the day and saying, Lord, refresh us, teach us, strengthen us. A few things I want to put in front of you today that I suggest you do in this time when the bottom has fallen out. First is we have to recover the gift of holy lament. We've got to tell the truth. If we're not careful, ministry becomes a series of ungrieved losses. Leadership becomes a series of ungrieved losses. Something happens, but we've got to lead, we've got to rally, we've got to cast vision, we've got to have tough conversations, and we just keep moving forward. And if we're not careful, we look up 12 months later, 18 months later, and we've got all of our emotions stacked up and our hearts are broken and we can't emote, we can't feel. We've got to recover the gift of holy lament. 2/3 of the Psalms have an element of lament in them, where the psalmist is saying, how long, O Lord? And God, why have you turned your face from me? And my God, Psalm 22:1, why have you forsaken me? Which are the very words Jesus himself takes up on the cross. If the Son of God can pray that prayer on the cross, and if the ancient people of Israel can pray that prayer as a part of their weekly liturgy, as a part of their daily life, I think we need to recover the gift of holy lament. We live in an age that tells us to shut down and to be quiet and to move on and to power up and to ignore the feelings. But the thing about ignoring the feelings is they'll circle back on you. They'll come back. They're going to leak out of us. It's time for us to recover the gift of holy lament. I grew up in a really strong faith culture, word of faith culture, where to tell the truth about these things that were scaring us or that were costing us or things that had broken our hearts, it was deemed a lack of faith. And I think we have got to grow out of that. We've got to be able to gather up with friends like you're sitting with in the room today at this enhanced gathering, to be able to take a break and say, here's what it's felt like for me these last 18 months to be a leader. Here are some of the difficult conversations I've had. Here are some of the friends that I've lost, and this is what it's cost me. This is what it's cost my family. We need to recover the gift of holy lament. So one of the assignments I'd like to give you during a break or during a quiet time here during this day, when you get a moment, is to begin to write out some of your anguish, to begin to maybe write even your own little psalm of lament about the last 18 months. What's it been like for you? To write a word cloud of the feelings and associations that you've carried in you. Some of you have felt shame, you felt guilt, you felt fear, you felt anxiety. If you're feeling that and carrying that, but there's no pressure release valve to say it, it's going to catch up with you. And in the ancient world, when a marauding army would storm in to overtake a town or to take over a region, one of the first things that they would do is they would send the army to go clog the wells, to go throw trash in, throw dirt in, throw rocks in, to stop up the wells. Because if you can stop up the wells in a community, you'll cut off all of the life. And that's what I think the enemy wants to do with our souls, is to stop up the well of our soul and to keep us from feeling, to keep that fresh flow of emotion and prayer and worship and feeling in the presence of God. And if he can do that, he can cut off our lives. He can cut off our leadership authority. He can cut off the strength in our communities. And so today, it's time to unstop the wells. It's time to recover the gift of holy lament. The second thing that I want to say today to you about this moment in time that we find ourselves is recover the gift of rest. None of us can know the collective trauma that we've been living in, even as a society. One psychologist recently wrote an article saying that we as large groups, societies, were actually living in what psychologists are calling sort of a communal burnout. It's time for us to recover the gift of rest. Henry Nouwen, he was asked about some of these times of crisis, and he suggested in one of his books that in these times, when you can, it's important to take more sleep, to take it easy on yourself. Father John O'Donohue, a great Irish priest and poet who's now entered his rest, He wrote a poem, A Blessing for One Who is Exhausted, and I encourage you to look it up. A blessing for one who is exhausted. But in that poem, he had this line where he says, be excessively gentle with yourself. I think it's time for us to take a deep breath, to get some rest. If you can go away on a weekend holiday, if you can take a little extra sleep, if you can find pockets in your schedule. We've been going at an alarming rate. We've had this demand on us to lead in a time of great uncertainty. And it's really important for us to take time to recover the gift of rest. Set boundaries on your work. Close your laptop. Throw your phone away for a few days and sink into the rest that God has for you. The third thing I want to say today is you need to receive the gift of friendship. Maybe today, at the table you're sitting at here at this Enhanced Conference, maybe you've got people that you've got some history with. Don't take that for granted. Receive the gift of friendship. Be with the people who bring you joy. Many of us, as leaders, find ourselves regularly in a helping vocation. We're kind of emotional and spiritual first responders. We've got firefighters and medical workers who are first responders when a physical crisis happens. They run to the front of the line. Well, we are emotional and spiritual and relational first responders. And so that means so many of our relationships are asymmetrical, where we're sitting in a seat where we're the leader, where we're the helper, we're the ones being sought for advice. And the people who are sitting across from us imagine themselves to be sitting a little bit lower in the chair looking up to us. There's an asymmetry in a disproportionate amount of our relationships. And that can be unhealthy over time. There can be a deep loneliness that sets in on us as leaders. And so today, it's time to press back into the gift of friendship. Maybe you're thinking about that couple that you would regularly have dinner with, but it's been 6 months or 9 months or a year since you've caught up. Maybe today is the day to make the phone call, to send the email, to send the text, to set up a time to get together and to talk, to share your hearts, to recover the gift of friendship. Even Jesus withdrew after taking care of the demoniac, of healing the sick, of feeding the 5,000. When Jesus, talk about the emotional, spiritual first responder, the one racing to the crisis, the one stepping into the swirl of madness. And what do we see from Jesus? Yes, he's fully there in that moment. But then Jesus often withdrew to lonely places to pray. He got up early and went up into the hills. He would walk the streets sometimes by himself when he could to recover some sanity and to get the deep gift of friendship with his Father. And so it's time for us today to receive the gift of friendship. And then the fourth thing, the last thing I want to say here in this first sort of devotional session, is it's time for us to find some sages that we want to be like one day. I think it's really important for us, especially with the asymmetrical relationships that we find ourselves in so often. It's time for us to find and identify those people out there who are living beautiful lives, who are living lives of deep sanity and wholeness, people who are living a convincing story, people who may be a couple decades ahead of you in the journey that you can look at and say, you know what, when I get there, I want to carry that. I want to feel that. People that we can submit ourselves to, that we can ask questions of, that we can find leadership from. If we're only leading, but we're never being led, we're going to crash. We're going to burn. We're going to find ourselves high-centered and stuck. And so I think in this moment, these are the things that stand out to me, that we got to really take care of ourselves. We got to have the gift of friendship. We've got to be excessively gentle. We've got to find those people who are living convincing and beautiful lives and really submit ourselves to them. So today, I want you to know that it's okay for you to think about taking care of yourself. Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And very often in leadership positions, we end up loving our neighbors and we end up giving out and there's just no extra to take care of ourselves. And this Enhanced gathering today is a day where you can press pause on all of the responsibilities, where you can settle into your seat, where you can take a deep breath, where you can close your eyes during the breaks and begin to let the Spirit of God refresh you. It's a day where you can begin to think about, how can I be recovered? How can I take care of myself so that I can stay in this for the long haul? So friends, it's going to be a great day together. I'm honored to be here with you to share. And I encourage you in this first session to settle in, to put your feet on the floor, to turn your phone off if you can, to be fully present, and to let the Spirit of the Lord give you the gift that you need today, the gift of recovery, the gift of friendship. It's time to begin to take care of yourself afresh. All God's best to you.